And that was fast. That was one of the fastest times it went from being normal to being live. Excited today. We're gonna have Allie Kieffer. I always want to call her Kieffer Allie because that's her handle. But we're gonna have Allie Kieffer on today, and I mean, she's really made an impact on the running world, especially after New York. So we're gonna check in with her, see what she's up to. I saw her last March in one of the last possible races you could have run at the Woodlands Marathon, where she took first place in the half marathon. We'll get to that and see what's up. So hopefully Allie will come on soon and we can join her in. And in the meantime, I'll pitch the grit. So make sure you're signing up for the grit. And you can go to believeintherun.com/grit for our summer distance project and check that out. And there we go with Allie. And she should be up in just a second. And it usually changes, the scene changes, and there it is. Hey!
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you a little warm after your hot workout of 300s this
Oh
morning?
my God, it's so hot here.
I don't even think I've done a 10 times 300 with 1 minute rest repeats ever.
Ever? I
Ever.
like 300s because it's like not too far where you can't keep your speed up. It's kind of great.
Yeah,
A
I
minute,
like
a minute of pain I can handle.
Yeah, I thought, wow, these sound not, obviously I'm not going to be competing with you, but they sound doable as far as a hard workout just because 200s I can really get geared up for. So
Yeah.
it's just a little bit, it's right when I normally get tired doing 400s is that 300 bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I could handle it, but the 1 minute in between would be a little tough.
Yeah, the 1 minute is kind of a bummer, I'm not gonna lie, because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I really wanted to go fast, and then you have that minute goes by really quick,
Yeah.
especially in this humidity.
It totally teaches you that Einstein was right. Time is relative, because the minute it takes you to run the 300, it's tough. You're waiting for it to finish, and then you get that minute break, and it goes by real fast.
Yeah.
And not saying that it takes you a minute to run 300.
I mean, not far off. It wasn't like super quick by any means, so
Yeah,
but I
and
mean,
I've seen you're kind of coaching Mitch,
yeah.
and I saw he did a mile trial recently.
Uh-huh. He ran 4:16,
I saw
4:15,
I
something
thought
crazy.
it's insane. So how did that transpire where you ended up being his coach for that?
So he was with a coach in town that has like a good group of people. I actually joined when I first moved to Austin too. And Mitch, I think, in quarantine and like weird times where there are no races, everyone kind of had a different idea of what they wanted to do. And honestly, this happened even before quarantine, but it's like pretty applicable to now as well. He just wanted to train for a different event, and the coach is a great coach, but just wasn't giving him real like 5K workouts or something. And
What distance is he normally concentrating on?
the marathon. So
Okay.
he had done 2 marathons, Chicago and CIM, to try to make the trials. And he ran 2:23 in Chicago and then blew up at CIM. It's like, go for it. Why not? You're
A
close.
lot of people had either great days or days where it just, I think the excitement, I imagine it because I'm not that fast, but I imagine that like here it is, everybody's going to CIM to get in. It was like a destination
Yeah.
for this is the pregame to Atlanta, and you just saw like whether it's nerves, whether it's overtraining, whether what, it seemed like it was a tough day for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. So I think I was tracking like 7 people or so, and Bromka, and only one person made it. There are some close calls like Bromka, but a lot of people blew up along like way earlier.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think that, yeah, like it's necessarily that they weren't ready to run fast. It's hard you go in that situation and you might as well just go for broke. Like
Yeah.
you're a second off or 10 minutes off. It really doesn't matter, right?
And have you run CIM before?
Mm-mm. I watched it the year before though.
What I hear is the course is deceptive. Yes, it's got a net downhill, but it's kind of like rolling. It's not a straight shot as people People think, I think it messes with some people too.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember, I think it's kind of marketed as like the fastest course. And then I did a 5K at Carlsbad, which is also marketed as the fastest 5K. And you get there and you're like, it's along the ocean. Like, it's not that, it's very windy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember being like, this is not that fast of a course. But you get a bunch of fast people, and all of a sudden it becomes a really fast race.
Yeah. Now, I recently saw you guys out in Texas. You were running
Hmm.
the Woodlands half marathon,
Hmm.
and both of you. How did you
Yeah.
feel that course was? How did you feel? Did you feel like you ran that day? Because I never got to like follow up and see how you felt about the whole thing.
Yeah. So I was coaching Mitch back then too. He wasn't like 100% bought into my program yet, but um, we both went there. It was a week after the Olympic trials for the marathon. I had DNF'd, and I kind of was at this place that I just needed to go race. Like, it didn't matter who's in the race, whatever happens, like I need to just I need to like give no excuses, and I'm going to do this race. And one of my friends actually was there, and I used to run with her in Boulder, Colorado. And somebody, I like, we chatted for a little bit, wished each other good luck, and then someone else asked her like what she was going to try to achieve, and she said she was trying to win. And I was like, oh, I want to win. Like, it kind of
I
got
won't
me back
spoil the
to
surprise.
yeah, well, I mean, I did win. She didn't have a great day, unfortunately for her. And I don't think it was like anything special for me. It was a minute over my PR. But I honestly wasn't, I coached myself to the Olympic trials, and it did not turn out well, obviously. But I did make a lot of gains in the marathon pace. So like my speed was not where it had been previously, but I kind of knew I was doing that because I wanted to get better at marathon pace tempos. Um, and that was probably good and bad.
I mean,
So
the race
just
from a
to,
spectator, the race looked like it went well for you. Like you looked strong, you looked healthy, you came across that line, you punched it out. So I was like, I was fanning out a little bit when you came across. So I
well,
mean,
so Mitch was at the end, and he
yeah,
was like, oh, how did you feel? How did it go? He's super excited. He PR'd, and we're 5K training at that point. And I saw the spark in him and the excitement of when PRs came a little bit more easily. And I was like, man, it was fine. Like, I got it accomplished, but it was nothing special. And I'm excited for him. Like, it's cool to watch him and be part of his progress, but it's a little bit hard because it's a humbling experience that I'm not like, I knew I wasn't ready to have a PR, but I didn't necessarily think he was either. And it's just, it's hard mentally.
yeah. It's kind of interesting. Both my wife and I run, so I think sometimes it can be help you because you can transfer some of your anxiety and your worrying about the race day to the other person. You can be like, oh, I just hope they have a good day. And if they have a good day, we both win kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. Do you feel like that? Or do you feel like you're focused on you and once the gun goes off, you know, it's about the run.
Well, I mean, I knew that I was like losing my sponsors. So I was kind of just like, this is a great race for me to pick up money and work on my head because my mental part is like definitely my weakness at the moment. So I wasn't really nervous as much as I knew I'm capable of running a good race. I know I'm pretty fit, but I didn't, I just needed to like go and race. And he wasn't really trying to PR, so there's nothing huge on the line. He was just going to have fun, which Mitch is great in that respect of he gets excited, but it's not a fear of failure like it is for me.
Yeah. I would say that's actually the flip flop. In my house,
Mm-hmm.
May goes out and she's like, I'm gonna hit the line, I'm just gonna do the best I can do today. Where I get to it and I have anxiety of
Yeah.
like I have expectations and if it doesn't come out and all that stuff. And I can't imagine at your level, and you mentioned sponsors and sponsorship and stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's a whole nother layer to that cake because then it's not just your performance and how you feel about it, but it's your performance, how you feel about it, and how sponsors feel about it. Has that been like you said that, hey, look at the little guy?
Winnie, Winnie, come here.
Um, they how's that transition been for you with like there's no races right now because of things going on. It looks like some stuff is coming back in the fall. I know especially in Texas where you are, there's some races popping up and smaller stuff. But with kind of ending the season there after Olympic trials and then, you know, you got in luckily you got in another race to kind of dust that off and you know, probably pretty fortunate there. Where's your head at with all of that stuff?
With their like with the sponsors or the no races?
Yeah, sponsors, no, like now you can, it's not like you can go out and be like, okay, I can find new sponsors, I can do the new stuff, but it's almost like, hey, let's just pause.
So I'm actually more interested in creating a different path of sponsorship, and not really going the route that's just based on my performance. But and I think that that does like happen already with some people and some companies, is that it's not necessarily about their performance as much as do the company and the person have the same goal or mission, kind of. And I, I think that for me, and when I was getting paid to run, and even before I got ever got paid, but when I was solely focused on just my own running, it at the end of the day sometimes became like, why do I can't keep this up because it's just running. Like it is a great thing to do. I love running, obviously. It's very part of a healthy lifestyle, you know, blah, blah, blah. But if that's the only thing you're doing throughout your life, like, I don't think I want to look back and think that's the only thing I achieved. And so I know I've had the body image conversation a lot, and I kind of want to use my platform just to kind of to help more people. And so I kind of went back to like, what what do I want to achieve? What do I want out of life? Like, what's my purpose? What's my mission? And I want to help people like live healthier lives. So I started a podcast, and
Yeah,
I got some training programs ready to launch.
great.
And I'm going to do a girls group in Austin. That's just like a bringing the happy hour to the running. And so
Nice.
instead of going out getting drinks, we're just going to have like a cool track session or something. I have some ideas like floating around of just being more connected with the community. And honestly, Mitch is part of that because his group, like coaching him, has led me to coach more people alongside him, and that's fun. It's like fun to see them progress together. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
given me a lot back.
that's interesting. You bring up like there was this hoopla of like what a runner's body is supposed to be and all that stuff that you were pretty much like I don't even think it was intentional. It was like you ran New York and all of a sudden it's like, boom, here's this girl that is not, you know, less than 100 pounds and 4 feet tall. But I've seen you in person. You have, to me, you look like a runner. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a difference there. You know, in that, I would think that would be super frustrating in like you're trying to run, you're doing your thing. And is this something that comes up a lot? Is it something that is still like following you around or?
So I've thought about that as well. And I was like, well, if I keep having that conversation and using myself as an example, people are going to keep thinking that I'm the big runner girl. So like,
Which,
why am I saying that? I think it's that I've felt that way sometimes. Like you get to a starting line and people judge you based on the way that you look. And no, I'm not big at all, but I think compared to some other elites, I have a higher body fat percentage. Not so high that like I should really work on, being leaner. I don't think that that's like necessarily what I mean
yeah,
by it. It's just that, um, um, yeah. So like I made that one statement, like, and somebody picked it up and kind of ran with it. And I was like, I think a lot of people go to races and feel the same way. It's the thing is, there's no look to being
yeah.
fast. You don't have to be a certain size.
And that's exactly it. Like the crazy part about that is, you know, obviously, typically in media, women's bodies are more judged than men's. You know, there's more scrutiny,
Hmm.
like on looks in general. But I feel like even I started off as a heavier guy, losing weight, and that's why I started running. And then even when I got thinner, I still may have seen myself as a bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's guys that line up that are intimidated by, you see like a guy like Mitch, the dude's ripped. I mean, he's got six-pack abs,
Okay, wait though, because Mitch is thin, but I can lift more than him. So like ripped is the wrong word.
Okay, but what I mean by ripped is like you're chiseled or whatever. You have like he's got like for a guy, you look at that guy and you go, okay, he to me is where if I was comparing myself, I'd be like, that's a runner's body, that. So all I'm saying is that I think that it transfers across the board, and you never know. Like one of my fastest runners in my group is not what I would call a stereotypical runner's body, and it really is more mental and heart and just putting the strength into it. And he's all over that. But I don't know if we can, unless do you want to say more about that?
No, I do. Yeah. Someone
Okay,
just put a little like comment and about like men feel the same pressure to be thin as women. And I've been doing this podcast. And so I've been talking to some people about, their relationship with food or cutting weight or gaining weight at the end of the season. And I was a little bit annoyed that I think when we're talk about weight and when I have talked about it in the past, it's like people believe I'm saying just eat more, don't worry about how much you weigh. And that's not really my message. It's be healthy. And so I wanted to know how people that were elite were staying healthy while also looking very like ripped or whatever your word was, chiseled, because some people really do look like almost emaciated. So if you're not getting injured and you're lean, then you have to be doing something that's keeping you healthy. So like, what is going on here? And I did have this conversation with an old coach of mine because he coached me at Arizona State University, coached Shelby Houlihan, coached Amy Craig. And I was like, you had such a great mentality around food. We never ever like became a big deal. And how did you kind of create that? And he went to Villanova and ran there and did really well for a few years until he could no longer run again. Because he said the guys' culture was to just boast about how lean they could get, like how little they could weigh. And so kind of in females, because I think we talk about it being like, be healthy, don't lose your period. But men, like it's like boastful and showful. Like, look how lean I got. Look how much I cut.
Like it's a challenge.
Yeah. And so they would he says on his teams now, and since then, he has heard guys say it to each other and has to take them aside and say, that's not going to get you the results you want. I did that. I did the same thing. He said he went to school. He was 155 pounds in college and he got down to 128 or something.
How tall is he?
He's not really tall, but maybe 5'8". I mean, not probably shouldn't be.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. And so he said he could have went professional. He was All-American a ton of times. He won Foot Lockers in high school, but he was All-American a ton in college until he just couldn't run anymore. And he never went pro. He became a coach because he lost the sport in his own running. Mm. And he said he was really frustrated for a long time where he just couldn't go out and be consistent at all. He had broken his body.
Wow. That's insane. So, I mean, it is tough. I guess you got to judge on both sides. Like you said, if the person's healthy and they're staying injury free, what's it matter? But if, I guess say that's the message.
I think it's that so I honestly think that the elites are cycling a little bit, so after the season they gain weight and then rolling into very big competitions like world championships or major marathons, they kind of lean down and they've mostly found this way to do it naturally. And I'm not saying it's a good system, and it's definitely, I don't recommend it for the masses. And I particularly think for people like me, it's hard for me to lose weight. That Emma Coburn said she gains 8 pounds after the season. I can't do that. I gain 8 pounds. I'm 8 pounds heavier forever.
That's 8 pounds for the next season. Yeah.
So But I've also like before I've lived in this little phase of kind of restriction all the time where it's like I never let myself have the like unhealthy food.
Hmm.
And that's also not healthy. And so they found a balance where at some points they eat more of that and sometimes they eat less. And I think that is something that we could all like take away is but it's a kind of defining what's moderation,
Yeah.
right?
Do you do any like if I'm like start noticing like I'm expanding it all, I will count calories or do whatever with like an app or something like that. Is
Mhm.
do you feel that's too restrictive or
For
like
me personally, but I know that other people do it. Actually, Mitch likes to do it, but I have in the past realized just like I want a healthy relationship with food. So it's important for me to know that like that's like number one. So if I'm a little bit heavier at the starting line, but I haven't jeopardized my health, that's more important to me. And that works out into more like um, maybe a certain amount of food on a plate. Like if I'm having 3 meals and 2 snacks, like, okay, what does my plate look like? Because that's kind of an easier way to for me to make
do
it.
it?
Yeah.
So in a way, you're calculating in your head, just not being anal about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I don't think of it as like a calorie as much as like what macros or nutrients do I want? And so how much do I want to be vegetables and how much do I need carbs or protein? Like I don't think of it as the number of calories because then my mind goes to like how little could I have? And
Ah,
that's not a healthy place for me to be.
okay, cool. So can we go back to New York? Can we
Yeah.
travel in time? And
Hmm.
like probably this is probably my first experience with getting to know you. And after that, obviously started following on Instagram, so I get to watch this arc of where you are now. But
Yeah.
New York, that was insane. Um, and I know that you were coming off of something very stressful in your own life and probably channeling it into your performance there. Can you talk to me about that
What do you
whole
mean?
uh, with where I'm guessing maybe I'm off here. Uh, the loss of your sister, and then coming into New York, and then
Yeah,
uh,
my sister died in 2007. So
okay, so that was
this is my 13-year-old dog that I got when she died. Winnie, Winnie. he's he's always sleeping,
which also
but
made it to the woodlands.
yes, yes, you did. Um, but yeah, so I think that in 2017, kind of it was just like crazy because I really didn't expect anything. I had taken I'd run like a lot of races in 2016, but kind of like nothing where I had been before in my life. Like I had qualified for the Olympic trials in 2012 for the 10K, and I think I ran 32:25, and then in 2016 I ran like 33 high or 34 on the road. So like I was not as good. I lived in New York City, and so I did like mini 10K, which is pretty good race. And I was like 21st or something. Like, it was probably my best race of the year. But then after that, which is in June, I took the rest of the year off. Like literally the end of June, I stopped running until 2017. So
Did you
I
do
knew
another sport or?
I picked up CrossFit. I moved in with my boyfriend who lived in Pennsylvania. He was doing CrossFit. I did CrossFit too. We both quit our jobs and we went to Europe for 2 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then we came back. We moved to Buffalo, New York, found new jobs. And I went into this like new CrossFit gym. And I was like, oh, you have to be careful with me. I'm a runner. And they were like, okay, well, how much do you run a week? Just like trying to make sure they make the right level for me. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't run. And, I do like maybe 15 miles a week. Like that wasn't running to me at the time. And so I was like, I guess like I ran like 40 or 50 miles in December. And I used to run 100 miles a week. Um, so I kind of like resparked it in me. And we had that boyfriend I had dated a long time ago when I was in graduate school at Arizona State. And he had been there for a lot of like the work, right? There's so much work that goes into performance. It's time way before the actual like achievement happens. And I think back then we broke up right before I had the achievement. And so he felt like he had been there for a lot of the work and then missed out on like the fun part. And so he was like, yeah, you should get back into it. I'm fully supportive. And then honestly, like running kind of took over my life because I got really into it. And I ran well in track season. I was coaching myself back then. You know, everything was, when I like left running in 2013 and I quit trying to be pro and moved to New York City and became a nanny. I thought that I had reached like my peak. And so I wasn't mad about it. It was just like, oh, I accomplished a lot. I made it to Olympic trials and I can walk away and do the rest of my life and still run because I'll be a runner forever and just like and be happy with what I did accomplish. And so when I was doing well in 2017, I remember I didn't have that much money. Like I quit my job. I moved in with him. We went away for 2 months. I had only been a nanny, so I got nothing left. And I called my mom. I was like, Mom, like things are going really well. You want to like go to California, go to Pete and Jordan with me? And she was like, I don't know. Are you ready to run that fast? And actually I went by myself and no, I wasn't ready to run that fast because it didn't happen. But I went to Portland Track Festival in June and my mom came and I ran 32:09. And so that was really just like a cool experience and got me like an elite entry into the New York City Marathon. And Nike was doing this like moonshot project, which was based off the Breaking 2 project. And it was just to help like local New York people. And they didn't really know I'd moved. So they invited me to be part of it. But I was in Buffalo. And so I was like, I would love to. By the way, I'm going to need everything sent to Buffalo. Yeah. So I kind of like snuck that in. But yeah, I mean, obviously like it worked out. I don't think it would have been that successful if I hadn't had their help though, because that kind of got me off, like it gave me a massage every couple weeks and food and strength trainer. So it got the ball rolling.
For the people who don't get to do it that way, the people that get bussed in or ferried in and sit on the grass on that, can you just let us know what it's like? Because I've always dreamed of what it would be like to run as an elite and have the different kind of setup for New York, because I think it would make it a different race.
I'm sure it does. I mean, honestly, does it not? Because we're basically in the morning. I don't even remember how early, but it does feel quite early still. I know everyone's New York City Marathon starts early, even though it's not that early of a race because it takes forever to get out there. But it's pretty early that we get onto the buses and then we get bused to Staten Island and we sit at the indoor track facility for like an hour or hour and a half or something. And it takes like an hour to get there just because there's traffic, there's a ton of buses going. We have a police escort, but it doesn't really make it that much faster, it doesn't seem. And then, we're at the track. It's like a close, small space. It's only a 200-meter track for all these people, and you're kind of watching Shalane. I remember like 2017, I was like, and Shalane's warming up. When do I warm up? Like, I've never done a marathon before. I don't have a coach. I was like, just looking around. And so
that must be surreal.
It was funny because I raced her at that Portland Track Festival 10K, and she had just come back from being injured. She had like a back injury or something that year. And I remember I was thinking, I don't know where I got such confidence, but I was like, I'm going to beat Shalane Flanagan today. Like, I had just run a 10K a couple minutes slower than her PR. I was not going to beat Shalane Flanagan. And she beat me during the race. And then, but I think I somewhat thought like, okay, I'm not completely out of these people's league. So when I got to 2017 New York City, I kind of copied people for the warm up. And then I remember when the like race went off, it started really slow. And so for the first couple miles, I just ran with them, like with the pack. And then
when you say really slow, can you give us an idea of what a pace is really slow?
I honestly feel like the first mile, like on my Garmin, was 6:20 or something. And I
Okay.
haven't ended up averaging 5:40. So it's not
Wow.
that it's slow, it's just, or 5:43. It's
Well, I know
just,
relative.
yeah. And I think sometimes when we think like marathon pace, like we do a steady pace. And so it was interesting to actually get to the marathon and it not be a steady race at all. That was like a shocker to me. But at some point, a couple miles in, they started to move a lot quicker because that first mile does go up the bridge. And so it is a lot of elevation gain. I think that a lot of the Kenyans start slow in their training anyway, and they're kind of like the Kenyans and the Ethiopians dictate the race. It's interesting because they won't follow an American that they don't believe is better than or them or is real competition. So a couple of years, uh, it wasn't Shalane or that it wasn't someone like amazing that led the race, and so they stayed back because Americans will sometimes push it in the beginning,
Yeah.
and nobody goes with them. But then Desi did it in 2018, and everybody went with her because she's won a major marathon
Yeah.
too, right? Like you're not gonna just let her run away with you from you. And so anyway, so someone made a move at 2 miles in 2017, and I was like, peace out, guys. See you at the end. Like, I'm not going faster than a 5:45 or whatever I came up with in my head I thought I could run. I remember trying to run 2:33. And so I was just wanted to stay right on that pace. And I got to halfway and I had run like exactly that pace without really like looking at my watch all that much. And then halfway was like on the bridge or going, I think it's on the bridge. But anyway, I don't know, maybe it's not yet. By the time we got to First Avenue, I was started to like roll people up that I kind of thought were like better than me. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking that, like, what's wrong with them? Like, why are they going so slow? Like, what happened in the race? You know, did they not get their fluids or they have a cramp or something? Like, but then why are there so many of them? Like, they're all coming back. I didn't really put it together that, like, I was doing so well, you know? And so
Did
it
that like
was,
pump you up when you start seeing them drop? Were you like all of a sudden like there's even more pep in your step? Like you
yes,
start to like, okay,
for
I'm
sure.
eating up the competition here.
Yeah. And it was a real like mental switch because I didn't even know in the beginning they were competition. And
Oh wow.
so like I didn't think I was going to be anywhere close to some of the girls I ended up beating.
Well, it's interesting, kind of like, I look at like Desi's 2016 Olympic trials where she ran her race and ended up catching up with everybody and getting second for the
Mm.
Olympic trials. And from what you're telling me, I was like, how without training, because you're saying you were warming up in the 200 or the track and you didn't really have training. I'm like, how did she play the game and get in there? But it sounds like you just kind of ran your own marathon and it just was the perfect day for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I honestly, part of it is luck. Like I got lucky that, and I figured a lot of this out in the race in 2018. I realized how lucky 2017 was because obviously I was fit. You know, you can't run a time unless you're actually fit. But it worked out that like while I was like kind of making my moves or like able to like move up, I was also running down people. And so I was getting a lot of momentum to what you were saying before by just like, oh, there's another person I passed. Like I never counted how many people were ahead of me when they broke away from me. But like I'm starting to roll up a lot of people here and like starting like, oh, that's Kellen Taylor. Like I know she's very good. So like I must be doing something right here, you know, like you don't know, I didn't know what place I was in even when I crossed the line. And so, but and you don't know who dropped out because that happens all the time either. Um, and I ended up fifth, so obviously it was an amazing run. And then 2018, kind of nothing I felt like went to plan. Like it was uh, it was kind of run as like a fartlek, and then I entered the race like with the expectation that I've gotten fifth, and so I went to get fifth or higher. Right?
Yeah.
I'm afraid to fail, so I don't want to get anything worse than fifth. And Desi usually runs pretty even, or she used to. So I kind of went off her, and that was the year she kind of fartlecked it. And everybody knows that Desi's good, so everybody really fartlecked a bit. And I was not prepared for that like style of race, and I was like hurting early. And then it must have been only 15K when the group kind of left me in the dust, and there was a second group or third group of us. It was like, you know, other like really good runners, but we're just not capable of going the faster pace yet. And so I luckily enough to just like tuck in with them, but it was kind of like this one group ahead of us leading went too fast, but the group I was in was kind of running too slow, and I needed to bridge the gap if I wanted to be top five. And so I in one way it was fortunate that I was able to tuck in and kind of like regain my composure, because at some point, I don't remember what point, I like started picking it up again, but I did like have a good close. My second half of the race was like 111 or something. So it ended fine, but I was too far back already to like, I couldn't move that much quicker than 111.
Yeah, catching up to that front back. So for people who aren't as familiar with training and stuff like that, fartlek is speed play. Can you describe when you say that Desi was kind of doing fartleks during the marathon, what that looks like during a marathon?
Yeah, so she was surging, going fast and then slowing down, and then going fast and slowing down. And some of that honestly wasn't even probably that intentional, but you kind of, in every race now I realize they being the elites surge into the water stations because you want to get your water and you don't want to miss it. And so you kind of speed up, but it's this very drastic thing where, oh, my friend Brian's here. Hi, Brian. So yeah, it was just like, oh my God, that's what running at this level or the level I want to be at is like. And man, I wish I had just like run my own race and not really tried to like do that.
Because you don't know if someone's making a move and they're going to slow back down or not. Is that set off like a little bit of a panic when you're racing like that? Like, oh, I got to keep up with this person. How long is this surge going to go? Or is it?
I mean, yeah, it's like I never really thought they were going to slow down. I guess I should have, because I think that's like a really good point. I've read that from someone else that they've said the faster that someone surges, like the quicker they're going to stop the surge. But in the race, I never really had that thought. I was just like, oh my gosh, why are we going so fast? This is too soon, you know? Definitely, I've seen a sports psychologist in the past, and I should definitely like go back to some of that, because we can have a lot of negative talk, and that definitely doesn't help. Oh, Mitch is on.
Yeah, hey Mitch. No matter what level you are, I think your brain can get involved in how you're doing stuff. So I'm going to jump into a question here.
Okay.
And someone's curious about how you're enjoying living in Austin.
I love Austin. It's great.
It's got a really strong running community, doesn't it?
I had no idea before I moved here, but it's amazing. Yeah. I got lucky. I met all my friends like pretty quickly when I came to Austin. I met them all at the local running store, The Loop, and it's been wonderful.
It's nice when you come in kind of with, a title.
It's good and bad because, it makes me wonder what like famous people go through, because I feel like sometimes people want to use that for something.
Yeah.
But it's good and bad.
I can imagine. Okay, so how big of a role does the psychology or mental training have in training regime? And you just kind of brought this up. So, I mean, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I mean, I think it has a big role for me. I think it depends on where you're at in your own running. Like at the beginning, I didn't need it. I just showed up and had fun and, got better, or like it was whatever it was. I just tried my hardest. And then as I have more expectation, it's become more important for me to stay positive, or like remember why I'm doing it is to have fun. And I think that's the blessing of not having the sponsors for me, is like I just get to make like myself happy now. I don't have to please anyone else. And that's probably not what they wanted me to do anyway, but like I felt some kind of pressure to do that before.
Yeah. Well, something you said kind of resonated with me when you were talking about coming back in 2018. You said anything less than fifth wasn't going to be a success for you. And I think that's sometimes the more experienced a runner gets, the more they start setting those expectations. And it's not, do I have a good running day? Do my legs and my body feel good and I run the best I can? And regardless of what I did, here's the time. But we could have a better, like, I could have a better race, but the time isn't quite as good as another race that I ran where I was miserable the whole time. And that the miserable race still is the better race in your head sometimes.
For sure. Yeah. And it doesn't really make sense because the courses are different, the weather's different, even year to year, like the weather can change. So if I go back to New York City every single year, it's not going to be the same. And the way the races run is different too. And so I was definitely comparing myself to 2017, and I cried at the end of the 2018 New York City Marathon. I PR'd with a 7th place at the New York City Marathon, and I was on the streets crying.
Oh,
And I used to live in New York City, so I ran into like this the what is it? The acupuncture. My acupuncturist was there, and he like literally ran into me the like afterwards on the street. We was not intentional at all, and he was like, "Oh, what's wrong? Like, didn't you run today?" And I was like, "Oh, I got 7." He was like, I feel like these aren't tears of joy, but why are they not? Like, that seems very, very good. And it's crazy how this expectation can kill our like enjoyment. And honestly, like that's where I need to start now is like, why am I doing this? And that's just, I want to have fun with it. Like I never really wanted to run just to make money. It's great if it works out that way, but if it makes me miserable, and takes away my love for running, I don't want to do that.
yeah, and it's strange as a fan and watching someone run and not knowing all their stats and what their, half PRs are or whatever, and seeing someone that just runs graceful, and you see them coming across the finish line, and you see the work that they put in their face. You're just elated for them, and when you see it's a disappointment for them, you're like, what happened? That looked great to me. But I can understand where all the stuff that's weighing on you more. So now you're saying without running with a sponsor, like, are you doing stuff in running that is paying the bills? Or are you outside of running? Like, what are you doing, career, or I don't even know what you call it nowadays, but like non-running, to make sure there's groceries in the fridge.
So right now I'm spending my savings, and I
A lot
am
of
like,
people right now.
yeah, I'm launching a coaching business. So I've got a website going that should launch soon, and I've started a podcast, which I think it's really cool, but maybe it's like cool in my own head, and other people don't think it's that cool. But it's a podcast, and then it's alongside a base training phase. So you can buy this like base training plan, but also there's a podcast for free, if that makes sense. So there's
Yeah.
basically two podcasts.
So it's basically
And
like you're
so,
getting the coaching and the conversation.
yes. So one of them is free, and then one you pay for. And so the one you pay for is just the training, but it's one of the pieces of training is from that pro you heard in the regular podcast.
What's
And
the
so
name?
it's,
Oh, you get tips from the pro. What's the name of the
you get the
podcast?
workout from a pro.
Okay.
So
So that would be like
the
your
podcast.
300 times 10 with 1 minute could be the Allie Kieffer tip for the week.
Yeah. So I'll give an example is like Molly Huddle is on, I'll drop her episode on Saturday, and she has a 30-minute tempo. And so she explains how you do a 30-minute tempo. And then that's one of your workouts.
Would I wear that podcast while I'm doing the workout, or do I listen to it and then do it?
So I think of it as like you listen to it in advance, because it's like it's a training plan for beginners that don't know how to do a 30-minute tempo.
Okay.
And then Molly explains like she didn't know how to do a 30-minute tempo at first either. And she used to go out super fast and then die. And then she started running it with like women that were professional, and they were like, no, you have to slow down a little bit in the beginning. And so she started slowing down, and she's like, oh, it starts out easy and like it gets harder as you go. And they're like, yeah, that's the point. But it's kind of like that level of teaching people, because I think I honestly think there's not that many really good training plans online. And so you'll be able to buy the PDF version, and there'll be like different levels based on where you're at in your own training. But if you're a beginner, there's a podcast as well, which is the podcast is like the most time intensive because there's editing sound, which I never knew how to do before.
And what's the name of the podcast? That are they two different names or the same name?
Allie Kieffer Radio. So I haven't actually sold the podcast yet or tried to. So I have like a private page on my own like radio channel. And so I don't know, there's a lot of things I didn't know how to do. And every day I'm like, let's just crack one of these because
Yeah.
I think this is part of what I need to do in running too. It's like I used to just not know how to do things. And so obviously we all start not knowing how to do anything, right? Like we learn how to talk and whatever. And so as you go up the chain, somewhere along the way, I didn't want to do things that I wasn't already good at. And like, you
Yeah.
can't live like that. And so losing the sponsors definitely made me rethink like what do I want to be doing and how do I do it. And I kind of just put it out there like I'm going to start a podcast. And yeah, it's been a learning experience. So I'm sure it will get better with time, but audio is definitely my weak point right now.
Well, I will tell you that from my experience, that just doing stuff is better than doing it wrong is better than not doing it at all. Like if you're like, it's sometimes like I have friends who want to start running and they want to run, like they want to come out of the gate running 7:30s for 10 miles and they go out and they run and they have a miserable time running because they're people that need to start off at a slower pace and build, endurance up. And it's the same thing I feel like you can't, like if you're starting, and this would be my advice to anybody doing a YouTube channel or anything like that, just do it. And you'll get better over time. You'll build an audience. And most people, are going to, if you have an authentic voice and you do, people are going to resonate with it and they're going to want to, help you get better and stuff like that. And I used to get mad when people would give me feedback, like your sound sucks or stuff like that, because they don't say it nicely. But I started like, oh, okay, I need to look into mics. I need to do this better. I need to do that better. So, yeah, it can be a little rough in the beginning, but I stick with it and it's worth it.
Yeah, for me, it's gone back to like, what do I want out of life? Like, what do I feel like my purpose and my mission is? And I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, and I guess that became evident in the more time that I spent with Mitch talking about running. Is he's like, "What's this? And how do you do that? And what is this?" And I was like, "Man, I need to stop giving this away to just you," because there are so many questions we have, and I still have questions, and it's been shocking how like I am a pretty opinionated person, but I have learned so much through these professionals of just like Molly Huddle said that she noticed the people who made the Olympics in the marathon were all people who had big breaks in the year before. I was like, you need breaks. Like I had been running and running and running, and I somehow thought that was going to get me somewhere other than hitting my head against the wall. Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Yeah, so there have been like a lot of Shelby Houlihan was on, and she said that sometimes you can kind of like see in her races that like every 50 meters are faster. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. I've heard the announcers be like, and then she changed a gear, and now she changed a gear. It's like, she's like, well, we do 150s, and we have to go progressively faster every 50 meters. And that's how I built my speed. And Molly, back to Molly's like tempo, she was like, I realized after I did the tempos for a certain amount of time that like I had all this speed at the end of a race and I could use my kick, while before I had the speed, but I couldn't use it at the end of the race because I was using it like too much in the beginning just to keep the pace. And so I kind of knew that part, but it's nice to be able to teach people from someone else's like experience. And so
yeah, you would just get me down a rabbit hole on that one, because I'd be like, okay, well, how do you get that speed at the end if you're using it to get to your pace? But
well, you have to do thresholds. You have to you don't get faster just by doing speed, right? You have to like two ends of the spectrum. And so you have endurance and then you have speed. And so you start with the base, in my opinion, is starting with the speed and the endurance, and you like bring them together as you get closer to what you want to achieve. And so you first have to create speed, which sounds like Molly already had. and then you do like shorter break recovery, right? And then on the other end, the tempos, they get longer or they get faster, or you intermix them with some of the speed. So, yeah.
So, and I'm kind of, there's a specific person I'm thinking of for this question, but if you know somebody who doesn't have a kick at the end of the race or says they have no kick at the end of the race, what are they doing wrong in their training? And they're a fast marathoner.
They probably don't have, like, they're not doing enough thresholds.
Okay.
Oh, they're a fast marathoner, but they don't have speed. Is that what you're asking?
They're a very fast marathoner. They just, when they get, I guess they're using it all to get to the finish line and they don't feel like they have a kick at the finish line.
But do they, in their training, do they have pure speed, like raw 400 meter ability?
She just gave you the LOL. Yeah, she does speed. She does all. I'm getting chief advice
Yeah,
from.
I would kind of think that there wasn't a tempo like marathon pace, but maybe miles off of a minute or 2 minute break, like where you can kind of move faster, but you're not getting a lot of break.
All right. Well, I will tell you, you've been awesome. This has been a joy.
Thanks for
And
having me.
yeah, I learned a lot. And I wish you luck with the podcast and everything like that. We'll
Thank you.
continue to check in, and I'll be watching to make sure that Mitch is, using your training and kicking some butt himself.
Well,
So,
I'm at the track twice a week with him now, so he is doing the training. Yeah.
awesome. And that's great because you can take pictures and show us what he's up to on Instagram. So
Yeah, I'm his paparazzi now.
yeah. All right. Well, that's awesome. They cut us off at an hour, so I don't want to
Yeah.
jump in there. But thank you so much and appreciate your time. And thanks for spending some time with me
Yeah.
and kind of letting us
Thank
know
you.
what's going on. All right, Allie.
Bye.
Bye.